And we're back. Did you miss me? Of course you did. Do you like my shirt? I love Paisley. I'm bringing Paisley back. You heard it here first. So, in honor of my love of Paisley and my belief it's going to come back full circle, everyone should start buying and wearing Paisley. Even those that feel uncomfortable doing so. Gotta break out of your mold, y'all. Just do it. If I can do it, you can do it. I'm Dusty Thompson, by the way, if I haven't said, and we're reading my book, Almost Odis, by Dusty Thompson. If you're following along, we are on page 18. I graduated from college, Mississippi University for Women, Go Blues, and attended graduate school at Ole Miss, Hotty Toddy, and started work for the Department of Veterans Affairs in Biloxi, Mississippi at the age of 27. I got my first apartment and took my first steps to eke out a career in federal health care. My mother had been sick for several years, and when she died in March 2000, at the age of 55, it shook our family to the core. My brother and I were both living in Mississippi, he in the Air Force with a new family, and me living in a small apartment on the beach. My sister lived in Austin, Texas with her husband and 2 children. My father and mother lived in an apartment in Brownsboro, Texas, not far from Tyler. I've always lived in an apartment. Even when it was a 2,000 square foot loft in Massachusetts, it was still an apartment. It never occurred to me I would have a house, as no one in my immediate family has ever owned a home without financial difficulties. It was just something I wasn't willing to risk. When my mother died, the dad began the geriatric equivalent of couch surfing, even though his financial means had not changed. He had decided for some reason he could no longer afford the apartment he and my mother shared, and he stated he needed to move in with someone. When I questioned how he suddenly couldn't afford the apartment, he insisted. When I pointed out he had afforded it with 2 people living there with only 1 income, he told me to drop it. He was the father and I was to respect his decisions. Not fully understanding the level of orneriness my mother managed to keep under control, he stayed with various siblings of his and my mother's until they either asked him to leave or he got mad/offended by something and left on his own. Most times he would arrive at the next home with no warning and simply state, "I'm moving in." This happened continuously for the next 8 years. Once my brother and his family had returned to the U.S. from stints in Australia and the Azores off the coast of Portugal and settled in Colorado, the dad called me one day and asked me to inform my brother he was moving in. I called my brother and said, "Congratulations, it's the boy." He lived with them for almost 18 months until they were reassigned to Hawaii. He left there and returned south to his sister Louise in Alabama. Since my mother's death, I had called the dad every Saturday to check in with him, and he spent much of those conversations complaining about whoever he was living with at the time. He wasn't happy with anything. When I was offered housing as part of my recruitment package for the position I had accepted at the VA Medical Center in Palo Alto, California, I was excited but hadn't given much thought to what I would do with all the extra space. Once I arrived in the San Francisco Bay Area in June 2011, I realized the house was far too large for one person. I briefly considered inviting the dad to live with me, but I wasn't sure how to even broach the subject. The dad is a proud man. He would rather demand something than have you offer it. I discussed it with my sister, who told me I would regret it. I held off for another month or so. Each time the dad and I spoke, it made me a little sadder for his living situation. He was sharing a 2-bedroom trailer with his 5 other adults sleeping in his recliner in the living room, and I had sent money more than once to help spray for roaches. In July, I prayed about it, and before I could change my mind, I called and invited him. My sister reiterated her assessment I would regret it, and I admitted I would be thinking the same thing had she mentioned a similar plan. But I felt very strongly my mother would want me to do the right thing and honor my father. Admittedly, I didn't know the dad, and having experienced several episodes at different Christmases where we switched roles and I became the parent and he the child, I wasn't sure how we would be able to coexist in one house. We are related, albeit very different. Our similarities are physical, our differences philosophical. However, we are both adults, and adults can be adults, right? And we'll stop there, and we'll see you next time. Please subscribe. Thanks.